Is everybody else? Oh, they're on mute. That's why. Okay.
As you all might have noticed, in Workroom Chat 3, we have dropped some links to a shared Google Drive that we've created for everyone. Just has some documents, a link to a glossary of common terms, some of those terms that we'll be using in today's presentation.
Google Docs is it? But you were talking about the Google Docs or the Drive?
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to go ahead and get started. Just for starters, I am Akisho.
I'm Sonja. Nice to meet you all.
And we would just like to start off by asking that everyone go ahead and mute themselves. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to raise your hand or send us a signal. We do have Sonja here maintaining the chat room, so if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
We'll probably address most of them towards the end unless anything's super pressing, just so that we can knock out the workshop for everybody. We'll see.
We do also want to mention that we will be recording the workshop just for later presentations, for example, on YouTube. So if anyone wants to turn off their camera and doesn't wish to be recorded, you may go ahead and do so now.
All right. Good. Can everybody hear us okay? It's like, I think everyone can hear us all right. Cool. Thank you. All right, we good.
Okay, that's great. Okay, so we'll talk about the donations. And you all have probably seen in the chat room, there are links for donations and some of the different charities that we are working with. I decided not to. Do apologize. Just one moment. Slight technical hiccup.
Thanks for bearing with us, everybody.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that.
Minor technical difficulty.
Everything was set up. Get ready to get started, and it goes, oh, never mind. Oh.
All right. Well, first we're gonna do just a quick mini introduction about what this is all about. we're going over some common misconceptions about vampires, like psychic vampires specifically in this one. And so we're just going to go over those kind of really quickly, and then we're going to like kind of go in more depth piece by piece throughout this and clarify some of those misconceptions.
So just kind of starting with some of one of the biggest ones, or that we kind of get a lot or you see a lot, are that psychic vampires are ones that we cause illnesses, we make people sick, just
Things like that.
so yeah, we'll be kind of touching on, some of the truths to what's really going on behind the scenes. And we will also be touching on the concept that psychic vampires will come and attack you during your dreams or in the astral realm. That is something that it's not unique to psychic vampires. It's actually a learned skill that anyone can do, but shouldn't.
Should not.
And then we will finally be touching on the differences really between what's called a non-awakened and an awakened vampire, and we'll clarify what those terms mean in specific. And we'll also be touching on some of the things that occur during each of those phases that may have given some of those negative connotations that you've heard about.
Mm-hmm. So I guess first off, we're gonna go over just some common ethics, or some people call them like rules, or what ways that we would live by. If you are like a psychic vampire, if you feed off of energy, and that is something that we do. That is something that we do, and it's not in a vindictive way, an attacking way, like we will discuss. It is a basic need, and it can actually do a lot of good for a lot of people, and that's not just talking about the vampires themselves. We're talking about if we have donors and things like that, we can actually help with a lot of issues and blockages and things like that, which we're going to go into later. But some of the rules and things that we live by, and this is, I mean, pretty general.
Yeah, very general, not really specific to us, just something that we feel just most psychic vampires kind of as a community, really. We just kind of have this.
It's like agreed upon.
Yeah, it's like spoken, unspoken rules that we just kind of we understand that we have needs, and we have certain abilities that come with these needs, and we have to understand that can have a great impact on those around us.
Mhm.
So some of the base morals or codes of ethics that we try and hold on to are things like we specifically don't feed on minors, children, the elderly, the sick and enfeebled.
Yep.
Like, those people need all the energy that they can get. They need their own energy. If anything, we will give some energy to them.
Yes.
If we come along and see that they may be struggling at a moment, they may be lacking. Sometimes you may notice that you'll feel that the person will brighten up or feel a little more peppy.
Mhm.
And that's something that we'll kind of touch on later as part of the things that we as psychic vampires kind of do with the energy that's around us.
Yeah, so that's a big rule of thumb, like no minors, no elderly people, nobody who's like ill anyway, like physically, mentally, emotionally, we do not touch that. Yeah, and I mean, reasons is just as Akisho said, they need all the energy they can get. If anything, we're going to actually give some to them. Another one So I'll let you go over this one.
Yeah, just there's a general consensus that psychic vampires and the like uh are going around just taking energy from people without their consent, without their knowledge or foresight. That's not something that we do. That's not something that anyone should do.
No.
It's kind of like casting a spell on someone without their permission. Whether you mean it for good or bad, you kind of want to get that person's permission, especially if you are going into what we would call surface, or when you're touching that individual, when you're focusing your energy on one single person. You want to have that person's permission. You want that person's consent. It's an invasion of their space, of their energy, and we want to respect that. And that, again, that's true of anyone. Like I said earlier, casting a spell on someone without their permission, that's something that you shouldn't do, something that you don't do, something that's in your code of positive ethics.
Yeah, and it's just like, if you if you saw someone with a really nice jacket walking by, you wouldn't walk up there and just take the jacket from them, right? You would go, hey, that's a really cool jacket. You don't just go take from anybody. And yeah, and that's just for everyone, the betterment of everybody involved, pretty much.
Yeah, so those are just kind of some of the base things that we look at, and we kind of strive to just kind of keep in the back of our minds when we are going through our day-to-day life. Just as a quick, easy rundown, person who is a psychic vampire is a person who has a natural energy deficiency within their energy. It's kind of like a person who has like a vitamin D or C deficiency,
Yeah.
and they have to supplement it. Typically, a lot of those deficiencies manifest in other ways within our bodies. And these are the reasons that we need to consume or absorb energy outside of our own.
And I'm sure we get questions about this too. Like, oh, well, what happens if you don't feed on anything? If you don't take any energy, it's not going to be that bad, right? You'll just feel a little sleepy or something. But I personally have been through since being awakened, have gone through a bout of denial like several years ago, way in the beginning, where not sure this is what I am. This sounds a little crazy. I don't really know if this really exists. All that fun stuff. And I was very, very sick. And not to go on a personal spiel, but it was a lot of doctors, a lot of visits, a lot of healthcare, a lot of treatments, and nothing could be found that was wrong with me. And we're talking, this was like 5 years of being very ill. And this was in the point when I was being awakened and still learning kind of that vampires really existed, and like I might be part of this group of people. And so once I actually started learning that and started educating myself and training myself and kind of opening my world up a little bit to that, it actually did get rid of my health issues, like all of them. And it is something that I notice the warning signs when my energy is kind of low.
Right. Yeah.
There are certain levels of worry
Exactly. You kind of
before you hit rock bottom. Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like when you're hangry and you start getting really grumpy, and then it's like if you know that feeling of being hangry, like this particular need.
You get a sense for it.
Exactly. And then you start to be like, oh, I haven't fed yet this week or month or whatever it is that you need. Everyone's different.
And we've kind of we've dropped the word awakened and awakening a few times, and to just kind of go back into that, the process is simply just a act of consciousness, an act of awareness. We have an inborn deficiency, so what we would call non-awakened or prior to awakening, it's generally you become awakened usually during your teen years, which is kind of aligned with a lot of different changes with your body. But what that means is before those stages, your body has this need, but you don't know what it is, so you can't yet satisfy it consciously. And that's where the biggest plot of the misconceptions of what a psychic vampire truly is come from. It comes from those people who are not conscious of what they are, of what they need, and their body is just naturally reaching out and grabbing this energy from everywhere around them, and they don't know how to control it or stop it. And that's when you see the people who will have these side effects brought onto them of, they say, oh, now this person is feeling weak and lethargic. Oh, now this person is sick.
Oh, it must be so.
It must be them.
Vampire.
Every time they come around, I feel drained. And it's not a purposeful act. It's an act. It's
an instinct. It's a survival.
Exactly.
Response. It's if you don't know what's actually going on in your energy body, for lack of a better word, your instincts are going to kick in, and whether you are conscious that you're doing it or not, you're going to be taking that energy because your body needs it.
And you naturally say, oh, okay, I've been around these people and I feel better, so maybe it was nothing, and
that's fine.
You don't understand. And when you get to the point of awakening, that's that point of discovery where that bell kind of clicks, and you may start reading things or seeing things, and you kind of go, this is kind of starting to these are starting to kind of add up. It's like you WebMD your spirit body.
There you go. Yeah.
That symptom and that symptom and okay. Let me look up. Let me go look up psychic people and see what they do. And okay.
Then you fall down the rabbit hole of books and blogs
and through that process of awakening, the biggest thing you gain is control. And that's when you start applying those layers of ethics and morals, when you start going, okay, I know my body needs these things. I know I have to do these things, but I have to be very careful of when and how I do it, and to whom I do it with and on.
Especially like you were saying before, if you're around these groups of people and they feel drained and you feel great, they're not going to want to be hanging out with you anymore. Because they're going to be like, oh, this person makes me feel like shit. Don't know why.
And I'm sure you've seen it online. Protect yourself from psychic vampire attacks. Do you feel drained and lethargic when you're around a certain person? Do you have bad dreams?
Just misconceptions come from people who are unawakened, that don't know what they're doing, what they are, and all of that. And that's the kind of thing that I feel is the major reason why we get a bad rap all the time. One of the big ones.
It's one of the big ones. It is one of the. I mean, if you kind of think about it in like a superhero kind of world, and you have this child who's suddenly developing these abilities and powers, and they don't know what to do with them or how to control them or what's going on. They're out in the world. and they get angry at the store, and all of a sudden you hear mutant has blown up supermarket in rage in fit of rage, and that's all you hear about them are those bad moments when you have all of these mature mutants and mature superpowered people and mature powered folks and mature psychics who are sitting there going, that's
There goes this.
bad. And it's kind of the same line of thought.
Mhm.
You see the bad news. The bad news spreads 10 times faster than the good news.
And that's also a reason why it's kind of hard to find others of your kind too, because you stay in the coffin, as it were, haha. People don't want to say what they are. They don't want to like acknowledge this part of them, and because it has all of these negative like thoughts about it, so you don't want to tell people that that's what you are. And it's an ongoing battle, I guess,
Right.
to kind of be comfortable coming out and saying like, yeah, I'm a psychic vampire. No, I'm not gonna drain you and you're not gonna die. It's okay.
And like I get a lot, I'm sure a lot of you are aware of the term incubus or succubus. Different things. Different
Not related to what we do
as most of us who've looked anywhere into occult work, you kind of get the conception that these are demonic or dark beings or spirits, and then that feed on people in their dreams and in the astral. And then you look at the definition or the thought processes of psychic vampirism as a person who feeds on your energy and feeds on the unexpected. And
Put those
over
together.
time, those two terms have combined and become interchangeable.
Which is also
It's a difference. It is a difference. Big difference. I am flesh and blood for the most part. I've yet to date sprouted horns or wings.
I ate regular food. Nothing on.
No, I don't see any horns. But all jokes aside, that's where the connotation that psychic vampires take, and we come in the ass or we come in your dreams and take. As anyone who has studied dream work or astral work knows, yeah, there are baddies out there, but to come into a person's personal space, their personal dreamscape, that goes right back to those moral codes of ethics. It's not something most people do accidentally. You don't go to sleep and accidentally wake up in someone else's dream. Not on purpose.
Purposely. Nope.
That's an intentional thing to intrude on another person's astral or dreamscape.
Mhm.
And it goes against most light, positive minded vampires' codes of morals and ethics. And I'm making that specification to say that just like any walk of life, just like with any psychic ability, there are those who use these tools and these abilities for good, and there are those who use these tools and these abilities for bad.
Just like in any community, any group, yeah. No more in ours than anywhere else.
There are those who consciously, actively do those things that we're saying not to do, we don't do. They exist. We know they exist. We are advising and just disclaiming that those are corner cases. just like with any other community.
Any ethical psychic
Yeah.
vampire knows better and does not encroach on other people's business or space, etc.
Like it's not something that you know you don't want to be known as the one that's like, oh no, I don't want to be around that person. Their mojo's off. You know, you don't want to be that type
I've
of
just
person.
met a few of those.
So yeah,
But on that note,
like yeah,
we can go into like different
the
ways of
illnesses.
feeding and things like that. And,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, what were you?
No, I'm sorry. I was just gonna. I did want to tie into
Yes.
that with the illnesses kind of side effects aspect of it.
Mhm.
Feeding in and of itself is the act of taking energy from one source into another.
Mhm.
That act in and of itself comes with certain side effects. And those side effects can vary depending on the type of feeding being done,
Mhm.
the amount of energy being taken.
And the source in which it's coming from, how that energy is being generated from that source as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are, in general speaking, there are four main types of feeding or ways to feed.
Yeah, they're the more common ones. First one we're gonna go from like the lightest version into like the more deeper stuff, just to give it some kind of a flow here that makes sense to anyone who's not used to this kind of this subject, I suppose. So the first one is distance feeding, or using what we call tendrils to feeding, and you can use these tendrils to feed on like an individual space or a group space, and we'll explain that in a sec. But tendrils want to like explain that a little bit, because
Yeah.
it's kind of like it's like an extension of your aura, kind of.
Yeah. So the way
Think like
I
long tentacles.
the way I would, kind of look at it is, we all have that aura body, and most people's aura body just kind of comes out in a general shimmer around them. It may be closer to their body, it may extend out a little bit, but it's typically a cloud around their body, and it kind of encircles their body. Psychic vampires differ in that our energy body has what's commonly called tendrils or tentacles, and you kind of picture them as arms of energy that kind of flow off away from our body. And these arms can extend, either very close to our bodies,
Mhm.
or we can extend them very, very far out and kind of disperse them kind of in a group. And that's what we're kind of utilizing when we're talking about distance feeding. And the distance feeding can have positive and positive uses and negative connotations as well. It just depends on the purpose.
Yeah, how well controlled you are, how much you've trained yourself, and all of that, which is all things that you're constantly like learning and perfecting.
As we said, as you are
As you're
awakened or
awakened,
conscious,
yes.
as we'll kind of call it, as you become more conscious of what you can and cannot do, what you become more aware of these abilities. With distance feeding, it's something that, as we touched on, we don't jump into a person's personal space without their permission. Distance feeding, we feed on the energy that the person
Like
has
expelled
expelled naturally.
It doesn't mean
It's not-
their aura.
It's no longer,
It's
in a
just
sense,
projected.
connected. Right. It's no longer connected to that person's energy body. Say, for example, you're in a concert and everyone is jumping and screaming, and you're just throwing this energy out
It's just, like,
everywhere.
everywhere.
You know, the
And
singer
like,
is
people-
the one that's focused, the energy is focused on the performer, and they're just bathing in this love and this light, and they're like, yeah. And, you know, as a person who can kind of feed on that energy, what we would do then is we would kind of just tap into
send
that.
those little tendrils out and
Out
kind of
into the
like pluck it
cloud.
from the projected
Mhm.
energy. And that is
The-
my primarily feeding. That's how I feed primarily, because I do not have a donor or anything like that.
Mhm. And when you don't have a donor, it limits you very greatly on the levels of, you know, feeding that you can do. You know,
Mhm.
and you know, while we're talking about feeding from that big group mass, you can also kind of take, for example, you walk in a room, it's tense, people may have been arguing. We can take those same tendrils and reach out into the room, and as we take that energy in, we can convert it. And
Mhm.
we'll get more onto what that means with the cycling and changing of energy. We'll touch on that a bit later. But we kind of convert that energy and put it back into the room as a positive energy that's been cleansed of that negative energy that was kind of bubbling in there. We kind of absorb that, neutralize it, and move on. And
Chill the room out.
Yeah. Thank you. Just chill the room out, you know, and that kind of leads
That leads into
into the next level when you aren't like focused on a group of people, when you want to focus on one particular person, then you reach a little bit closer into their energy body, and that's when you kind of want to go, hey, you know, this is what's going on. That's when you start getting into the donor territories, because you want to kind of go a little bit closer to the person's own energy field. You want to get into their bubble a little bit more.
Yeah, and that again requires
Mhm.
consent, just like with anything else.
Exactly.
You're getting into their personal space. You want to make sure that this is all right.
And there's still, you know, you still have the levels. Oh, we have a question.
Yeah, it looks like we have a question in here.
You're muted at the
Oh,
moment.
I think
Just
you're muted right now.
You are currently muted.
Here.
And,
Better.
let me see.
Okay.
If you somehow.
Okay, test, toast, toast.
We cannot get your audio
We
unmuted.
can't.
Can't hear you for some odd reason.
Do you want to type it in chat? I can read it off of here if that
Okay, hold on.
makes it easier.
Mhm.
I'm sorry about that. Not,
Yeah, hold on. Let me bring it up. All right.
Still can't hear you.
Oh. Hold on. Hold on.
sorry about that. Are you able to maybe type it into
If you can
chat?
type it in
And then, yeah, we
Yeah, that's what I'm
read it
looking
out.
for.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why we can't.
I'm
Here
not
it
sure
is.
why.
Here it is. Here it is.
Great.
Mhm.
But
You can keep talking.
Yeah, as I was
I'll watch
going
the chat.
you know, when you get down into the surface level, you know, you're kind of skimming. It's like the surface of a pond. You know, you haven't really stuck your hand in the water, but you're just kind of hovering over it, and you get that bit of water that splashes up from the surface. And that's kind of where we're going when you think about the surface level of energy. You haven't really pierced that person's um
Their personal bubble, as
Yeah.
it were, yeah.
but you're not reaching out to their outer space of energy that's already been distributed. This particular energy is still kind of on the person. Like,
when you're done.
this is something that, you kind of think of a person who they may be feeling ill emotions or unhealthy, and you kind of go on the surface and just kind of skim some of that off. You skim some of that excess negativity off.
So the question is, what about feeding on your deities and being a donor to them? Like, for example, Kali, etc. Which, again, that goes kind of into the energy exchange that we're going to get into, like, kind of how that exchange happens. And that is definitely, I feel like that's definitely something that you could do if you are.
Yeah, I mean, if you have
worship
that,
deities.
yeah,
I personally do not, so I can't personally speak for that.
right. I
But-
think for me, because I work with dragons, so kind of having a magical energy partner, that exchange of energy is definitely a thing. If you have that line of connection with your deity, then I wouldn't see why not.
Yeah, it's a
I
positive.
would
beneficial
honestly,
tool.
I would feel that for me personally, I feel it's a much deeper connection, when I'm working with my partner magicians in the spirit realm, um, than when I would say be feeding from someone who's corporeal. It's a different level of energy work. That direct energy is always going to have, I feel like, a bigger oomph than if you were to be, I don't know, I guess I would say feeding from, yeah, I guess a corporeal person really kind of spits it.
It's the
Yeah,
bill.
it fits the bill. Yeah, like I would not see why not in regards to that, but
I would
Yeah.
say if you're going to be doing that, I mean, I know you have a lot more experience with that actually. But for if it was someone who was first starting out, I might exercise some caution. Because if you're working with like deities, like ancient gods, goddesses, etc., anything of that realm, you're not gonna want to go in there, with your little stick, like, hey, I can help. Let me help. You're gonna kind of want to. You're gonna want to know. You're gonna want to know. You're gonna want to have more control. You're going to want to be able to manage and maneuver your energy more. And like we're gonna be talking in a little bit about cycling, absorbing, and filtering energy, and giving it back out, and all of that stuff. That is something that once you work on, I would say I don't see the problem at all, but it is something that I would not do if you're first awakening. If you're still just stepping into this doorway, you might not want to touch on that if you're new. But if you've got like some good control on your energy fields and like how to actually maneuver it, I don't see why that would be a problem at all.
And in that instance, it kind of goes back to what we said earlier about control and consent.
Mhm.
You have to have that communication with your deity in order to even, understand if that is
that's
type
what
of something
they're
that they want to
interested-
work
they want
with you
to-
along.
Exactly. You might be
So-
interested, but they might not.
Or
and
there
that is
it may
something
not
you would
be,
need to
may not be time at that time.
communicate. Yeah.
Exactly. So again, it's communication and consent.
Yep.
It really goes right back. Especially when you get to the next level of feeding, which is touch. And that's when you are physically laying hands on someone. Your body is in physical contact with that person as you are feeding.
Also, good question, by the way.
Very good question. Yes. And you'll get a lot. You'll go, oh, they'll a vampire will just kind of run up and they'll feed from you while they're hugging you. It is an option. It is always an option. As is someone going up to you and stabbing you in the back while they're hugging you. As is someone slipping spell powder down your shirt when they hug you. As is someone casting a hex on them. It is always an option, but it goes back to consent.
Mhm.
Do you have this person's permission to take their energy?
Yeah, like I would not like walk in here and like touch Akisho's shoulder in his personal space and then take something and be like, how's it going? I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna just touch his shoulder. Again, even that, it's like you don't go in for a group hug if the person goes like this. Yeah, consent. Consent and communication.
It's like when you get into that aspect, you really want to be cognizant and aware, because again, it kind of goes back to where the negative connotations come from. A person who is unconscious of their nature, unconscious of their needs, their abilities, their talents, this may not be something that they have control over at this time. This is where, again, you go back to the person who says, "Oh, I don't know what it is, but every time I hug so and so, I just feel I feel so tired and so drained." Or it goes back to that kind of thing when you're unconsciously doing these things. But once you have that awareness, you can use that exchange through the physical touch to do different things like healing the person.
Mm-hmm. I've done things like that in the past where after I was awakened again, like kind of knew my way around handling my own energy and projecting it and all of that stuff. And I had a friend who was having like some wrist problems, and it wasn't anything to do with a muscle, it was like an energy block.
Mhm.
And after kind of like like rub the wrist, make them feel a little better and things like that, I was like, do you want me to try to see if there's a block in there? And they gave me their full consent. I told them exactly what I was going to do before we did anything, before I initiated anything at all. And I said, if you ever want to stop, tell me that you want to stop. Again, this comes with the communication and the consent,
Mhm.
asking, telling them like, you let me know, like if you're feeling a little weird, if this is uncomfortable, you let me know. But like all I did was I used touch, to like just lay my hand around their wrist where they were having the area. And I kind of reached those little tendrils that we discussed almost like into that energy space, and I found the block. And what I did was, I used my energy to actually take out the block, because we'll get into that. That is one of the amazing perks of being a psychic vampire, is we're one of the only things that can like absorb negative energy and turn it into something good. So it's kind of a perk. So I could remove that bad energy and I could take it into myself, cycle it around, turn it to a positive, and then give them that back, and their wrist was fine. And then, the next week they were having all this better luck and all this stuff, and it was just a block, things like that, where touch can kind of help as a focus point almost to kind of like,
yeah. It's a way to direct your energy without expending a lot of our energy, because again, we are at a deficient.
Yeah.
Like we don't have
We don't
the
just
energy
give
to
it.
give away.
If it comes in, we can give it out.
We can use what we have. I mean, it's like a battery. It's really like a battery.
Yeah.
Like it's a rechargeable battery.
Exactly.
But it's a battery. It's a battery.
It's like
with
an
a leak.
old phone battery.
It's an old battery with the leak. It'll hold a charge for a little bit. But eventually, if you don't put it back on the charger, it's gonna die on you when you need it most.
Yep.
But it's like when you are, and just to kind of come back, when you're touching someone, you don't have to go too far into their energy center. When you are going any deeper than really the surface of their energy, whether touch or otherwise, that's where we kind of get into that last form of feeding, which aptly named is called deep feeding, as it's the deepest form, of general feeding that we kind of go through. In these moments, you're in essence, I kind of see it for me personally.
Mhm.
I kind of see it as combining my essence almost with that person. And in
Yeah.
that moment, like my energy, like I'm
You
taking
cut the lines
I'm
blur in
taking-
there
yeah.
a little bit.
like
Yeah.
I'm taking a part of myself, a part of my energy body, those tendrils, and suffusing them
Mhm.
into almost the core of the person. And
I was gonna say, and again, this still is not like, this is still not negatively going to affect the person. We'll explain why, but in case anyone was freaking out,
do note, the utmost of consent
yes,
is needed for this level. Because as I'm
constant
explaining it,
throughout the process, not even
you
just
this is not
Yeah.
this is not a surface level. This is generally where donors come in, or consistent partners, if you will. When you have that person who is comfortable, almost, I don't want to say intimately, because it can be,
It can be.
it can be,
Yeah.
but it can also be invigorating, like go to a massage therapist and they're giving you a deep tissue massage and you just feel it throughout your whole body. Again, you kind of sense it as you're taking those tendrils into the person, and while you are absorbing energy from them, you are still flowing some of your energy through, and it's kind of creating a bit of a bond there.
Yeah.
So
And that's also where you need to, again, really know what you're doing here. And because I wouldn't say cause negative effects, but there are side effects, which is kind of what we were saying can be misconstrued there. Like there can be like some bonding that happens there.
it's not an
and you have
easy
to-
thing to do. It's not,
No.
this isn't one that you really see accidentally.
No, you have
This
to
isn't
really
something
consciously do this.
That generally, this isn't something that you see from the unconscious or the unawakened.
Mhm.
This is something that is like
It
you
takes
have a
focus.
partner that you're meditating with, and you are both consciously matching your frequency and your wavelengths. This is where we are able to do really some of the greatest good for the person and ourselves as well. When you are in that level, you you kind of see that person's you kind of get a sense of the person's emotions, their physical
Yes.
well-being.
Yeah.
And when you go into this with the mindset of this person is in need, this person is ailing, this person is ill and or hurting, and they need help. When you go with that mindset, like
Mhm.
Sonia said earlier, we're one of the only or few beings that can go in and absorb that energy and change it
Yeah.
and give it back. When you go in with the mindset of healing someone on this level, you go in and you take those tendrils and you search through through the core, the deepest part, and you find those blockages. You find though that bundle of blocked energy. You find what's causing that sickness or that illness, and you kind of break it
Yeah.
up.
Like there are other like energy works out there, like there's Joe Ray and Reiki and
Yeah.
Qigong and all that stuff. For like that, it's kind of like that. This is a little deeper than that actually.
Like with,
Um,
yeah, with Reiki, you're pushing
Yeah, you're
energy
kind of pushing
in.
it in, or
and
you're
flushing.
taking, yeah, and then like Joe Ray, you can like take out the energy and just disperse it and things like, I mean, there are other processes, but that's a common used one. And like things like that. But if you're an energy vampire, the one of the cool perks about this is that we actually can utilize that negative energy. We can utilize the blockages, the painful energy, anything, we can actually absorb that, and our bodies can, our energy bodies, whatever you want to call it, we can handle that, we can process that, and it's an incredibly useful tool when you're trying to heal someone, and that goes into the cycling, which we're about to talk about too.
So it's
What we can do with that energy.
so, and and just to kind of circle back, when we say, oh no, you don't feed on the sick and the weak.
Yeah,
that's
let's
where
clarify that.
so and in these moments, that's where the ability to what we call cycling energy is when we take the energy into ourselves, our bodies kind of go through this natural process of a purge almost. Like it's like digesting food where your body will absorb what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't.
A way that I like to explain it to people a lot is if you've ever seen Iron Man, his little like core that spins and spins and spins, and it keeps the magnets away from his heart and stuff, like kind of like that. Like it's spinning and like absorbing all this stuff.
What we do with that is once we've cycled through this energy and kind of changed its form,
And
then
take off what we need of it
exactly.
too. So we take in the so we basically take in the negative. Let's just say blockage.
A blockage.
Let's say we're healing somebody. We take that blockage, we absorb it into ourselves. If we have to like break it up or whatever, we break it up, absorb it into our own energy centers, cycle it around, kind of change its format, as it were.
Right.
And like we can take because especially if it's negative energy, it's usually going to have like a bit more of a hefty charge to it.
Yeah.
So there's going to be excess. And that's where like we can take what we need from it, but we can also have all this extra and go on what you do with the extra.
Right. So once you get all that extra, and we take that energy and we refocus it and gently disperse it back into the person's energy field. And
make sure it's
because
going well
and at this point, because you are so closely bonded with the person, it's kind of like their body says, oh, this was kind of my energy already, and I know what to do with this. So
yeah,
okay, now I'm just gonna go back and let's go fix the stuff that was broken. Because the body heals itself.
Mhm.
The body naturally heals itself. Doctors and everything else, it just kind of
And it's
helps the
not
body
foreign
along.
energy. It's not foreign energy that's getting put back in.
Right.
It's very familiar. It's just fixed, cleaned,
Yeah,
filtered, whatever you want to call it.
been washed,
There you go.
washed it, put
Yes.
it back on the rag, and all is well. And these are things that you can do kind of en masse, or it can be a very focused thing. It isn't always take. You'll really, if you really get, I guess, I'd say maybe comfortable or close to it, get to know
Mhm.
some of these healers out there, you'll be surprised to discover how many great healers are actually psychic vampires. But because of the connotations that we get and the assumptions, no one wants to go to a psychic vampire healer.
No.
It has so many negative connotations. But because we know we have these skills, we just say, hey, I can heal you. I'm a healer.
Yeah.
And we do
people
our
are like,
job.
"Oh,
And
that's
they're like, oh, this is great. I feel wonderful. It's great. And then you kind of look back, and when you kind of say, I wonder, they just have a really good gift, it's just something about them. And lo and behold, you'll probably find out that they were psychic vampire all along, just in the closet, as we would say, and not really able to come out. And that's kind of like the biggest purpose of this entire
Doing
workshop.
things like this. Yeah.
Right,
This is why we want to have more things like this. Also, why we have meetups and welcome anybody, because if anyone has questions, if anybody wants to, yeah, I'm having all these like weird things happen. What's going on? We can explain this to you. We can help with this. We want to promote like the good of that this can be, and not all the negatives to where, like, oh, I'm a vampire. Oh no, now I have to like stay in a dark room and
Exactly.
stay away from people, otherwise I could hurt them. And we want to stop all that.
And I did want to kind of go back on while we're in the deep feeding realm. When you are kind of absorbing a good portion of a person's energy, there are side effects. There
Yes,
is
and you
a
have to
side
be
effect
aware
label
of them,
on the side of the
and-
bottle. And these, when done unknowingly, are again where a lot of misconceptions come
Can be,
from.
yeah.
When you are absorbing a person's energy, they are losing energy by the pure definition of the word. They may experience symptoms like fatigue,
Mhm.
exhaustion, drowsiness, hunger, these are things that may happen naturally when the body expends or loses a large amount of energy at one given moment.
You will generate it back, like it will come back. It's some people generate it quickly,
Mhm.
some people don't. And I mean, that's
Yeah.
where the communication comes in. If you have this willing donor and you explain, like these are some of the things.
Afterwards.
Yeah, and it's almost like when you go to donate blood and they give you little graham crackers afterward, and they're like, okay, we're just gonna keep an eye on you, make sure you're good. And that is also expected of a vampire who has a donor. Like, you are responsible for that donor and making sure that they are all right, making sure that they are getting what they need, making sure
There's food.
they're in a safe space. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
Like it becomes a very big responsibility, at once you are conscious and once you are reaching those touch levels and those deeper levels of feeding, to be aware of what is going on, be aware of the repercussions of your actions, and be prepared to mediate those effects.
Mhm.
It is.
And I can say, like, especially if it's your first time doing it and you all do all the right things. Like, at first time I did that, I had like a mini panic attack because my donor was taking a little longer to recover than I expected, and I kind of freaked out. And there literally, the panic lasted for a couple years, even though they were fine in like a week. I still always wondered, oh my God, did I leave a hole in their energy? Is that why they're having bad luck? Oh my God, what did I do? And it took a while to kind of like calm myself down and be like, no, they've generated it fine. These are all just really random coincidences. Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It can be a little daunting.
It can be a little daunting. And even when your focus is to heal the person, that person's energy body still has to deal with the fact that their energy has been adjusted.
Mhm.
Even though it is their own energy that we're giving back, it has been adjusted. It's been impacted by our own.
Mhm.
And they're still going to feel that. So even when the focus is to heal that person, their body will still
gonna
need
feel
time
it.
to recover.
Yeah.
You've had work done.
You give,
You've
yeah.
had a surgery.
Yeah.
The
You're better
surgery
off
was
than
to
you
heal
went-
you.
You're better off than you went in, but you're still gonna need some time to relax
Right.
and recuperate, and that's
That
like,
recuperation will
exactly
take
what
you
it is.
above where you were before
Exactly.
the treatment.
yes.
So that's
So in the end, it is a very, very like beneficial thing to everyone, and that donors included. It is a beneficial thing. However, those like instant repercussions, those are going to happen. It's cause and effect. It's literally just going.
This is where
It's just proven.
consent is
Yes.
key. Like more so with, in any other type of, vampirism, it doesn't really leave many physical evidence, really, So it's something that the ethical vampire is always cognizant of.
Yeah, like especially even if you've communicated everything and your donor knows what they're getting into and all this, and they told you, oh, this feels a little weird, and you stop all the stuff. As the vampire who has been doing this energy work, you know that you need to watch out for this person. You need to care for them, make sure that they are all right. And because you are the person working with the energy, I mean, unless you're working with another energy worker, which is amazing when that happens, that's great. But very often that's not the case. And so they're not going to know, like, why am I feeling this way? Or why is my stomach upset? Why do I have a weird headache? You as the vampire are going to know what those symptoms are and what's caused for the most part.
You are typically the expert on call.
Yeah, so you have to be there to be like, let me know if you need anything. Do you have a headache? Can I bring you the water? Do you need to rest? What can I do for you? And that is also your responsibility to where, even though they're going to recover for the better, if they need something immediately, like say they're like not recovering as fast as they should, not feeling that great, it is your responsibility to give some of that energy to correct, like give them a little faster recovery time, I guess. Yeah, yes, a little bit of extra boost so that they heal a little faster. And that's something going in that is your responsibility and is
I mean, honestly, just like when you're focusing on healing someone, you've taken on the responsibility of their well-being.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of know when you need to adjust the dosage, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like if you've done a healing session with someone and you see that things are not as, not clearing as quickly as you want, you may need to do a smaller session. You may not need to go as deep this time. You may need to only do a surface level touch and just kind of keep the energy, just kind of help the energy reflow. You're healing this person. You're working with their energy. And as a psychic vampire, you're using those additional abilities, those tendrils, the cycling, the absorbing, the things that we can do, the things that are our bread and butter, so to speak.
Yeah.
The natural born innate abilities that make some form of positive to psychic vampirism. Because there are negatives. There are tons of negatives. Like we said, it is a deficiency.
It
and
is.
with that deficiency comes
problem.
like right. It's a chronic type of ordeal.
Yeah.
So you have that balance. So in the mindset of keeping ourselves healthy, when working with the healer or working to heal, you kind of have that innate understanding of how the body should work or how the body works. And we use that to go in and do the different things that other people can't do. You like you said, if you have that rare opportunity to work with another light worker, and you can go in and kind of help shape and mold that light energy that they're working, and you can kind of use our tendrils to help direct and
form it
get
and
it
shape
into
it
areas that normally have like smaller energy circlets or energy byways or however you want to call it. And you can take that tendril and just kind of get in there and just melt into that energy pathway and help heal that person. It's such a rush.
Yeah.
For everyone. It just boosts and bounce everyone's energy that's just involved in the working. So while we do need to take on the energy to feed ourselves, to heal ourselves, to maintain
ourselves,
our
everything.
own core, there's so much more we can do and so much more we do with that energy, and so much more we do with those abilities. And it's
Not even known.
Yeah,
Most
it's-
people don't even know we can do these kind
Yeah.
of things.
it's generally not spoken of because you don't want to have those negative connotations,
Mhm.
lined up or applied to you. But yeah, I definitely want to go. I know we've thrown a lot of terms at you, a lot of words you may be unfamiliar with, but again, there is a link that was shared with everyone. It has a glossary
For all
of these terms that we've
using.
used. It has a link to a couple of books.
It's also got like a discussion. I copied a version of a YouTube by someone called Michelle Belanger, which if you were in the workshop that we did last year, we did mention some of her stuff. She's a very like out and proud psychic vampire. Has written a bunch of amazing books on like, magic, psychic vampirism. I do recommend checking out her YouTube channel. She does like really amazing ritual work and like she's a world of information. So I posted one of her like a link to one of her videos, and it's just it's kind of like a discussion she was having in 2018 she was having like her private dinner party, and they videotaped her discussing like basically the state of the vampire community today, in the past, and going forward. And it's a little bit long, but it's very interesting. It's very informative.
Full of information.
Yes. And then we also put a link to our Discord server if you want to join us, if you have more questions, if you want to chat with us, it's in there. Anyone is welcome. The only thing we ask you to do is just give yourself a little introduction, and we can add you into the rest.
Be kind, be respectful to
Yes.
everyone. Like we are I guess you would say a family server
Yeah.
for the most part, so yeah, keep it cute, keep it clean. We don't tolerate any hatery, bigoration, all that fun stuff. None of that, so we try and be open and welcoming. We want to be a resource for anyone who may think like us or
Or
have
it's just interesting.
curiosities. Yeah.
We have everything on there from just casual chats when it's safe. We do meetups and things like that. Just, hanging out, grabbing a coffee, things like that. There's also, we have like a constantly growing digital library on there with just tons of books of information that's on our Discord as well. I've put 2 books actually in that link for the drive if anybody wants access to them. One of them is The Ethical Psychic Vampire, and it's a very good read. It's very in depth, especially if you're kind of new to this stuff, but it's a good book, and it kind of goes way more in depth on everything that we touched in today. So if anyone wants like a little more information, you can go ahead and check that out. And I put it in there. It's a bit of a heavier read, but Michelle Belange's the Vampire Codex, and it's a lot.
It's a gem, but
Yes.
oh, is it a massive gem?
An amazing assortment of information, but it's a lot.
This is also something that was created more so with the mindset of being a kind of a guide and a handbook almost for newly awakened psychic vampires. So it is an information dump.
Yeah.
But it's rich information.
Yes. And I think that's most of it. I think if anyone has any questions or anything, since we seem to be having issues with muting and stuff, if you want, you can just type it in the chat room. Also, you can always just just message us on Discord too. Like if the next workshop starts or whatever, and you don't want to, you can go ahead and just like message us any questions, just shoot us a DM or something on Discord or whatever. Ask us whatever. But I know we're gonna this is kind of like free time, so I think we have like about 5-10 minutes ish till we have to get out of here. Oh, hi Twyla.
Hi, Twyla.
We're just wrapping it up. Getting any last questions or anything?
That is wonderful. Did you guys enjoy your workshop?
Yeah, and
Marvelous.
yeah, we've been having, for some reason, there's an issue with
Hearing
the,
people that are
yeah.
in the workshop. I'm not sure what that's about. I'm reading the chat though.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
we have been addressing questions in the chat room.
I don't know why. Everyone should have been able to unmute themselves, so
See,
I
but
don't
again,
know.
if you think of any further questions, if you do decide to go ahead and review the glossary or any of the links or books that we've left, if any questions pop up, we're both here available. You can message us on Discord and drop by and join our server and ask any questions there. And if we're not available, there's a couple other people that'll be more than happy to kind of guide you in the right direction. And again, our direct message boxes are open.
Yep. We have one more person typing. Very good. Yeah, thank you, Elliot. I appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you guys so much for coming to spend a little bit of time with us. Thanks for
Coming in open-minded. Hilarious.
we definitely appreciate it. Thank you guys so very, very much.
Yes, and again, like it's up there in the workshop chat. If you can donate to Pagan Pride or anything, their PayPal and Venmo and everything is in there. If you'd like to, they're always really appreciated.
Absolutely. It's like we wouldn't be able to do this without donations from like the amazing people like you. And so it definitely helps. Any bit helps.
Yeah.
And you can also choose any of the other amazing charities that they have listed